Welcome to Fridays with Goodman. This is episode 7, and we shall begin. Going, Dr. Goodman?
It is going amazing.
Amazing. We are here, and this is episode 7. I already have 7. So episode 7 is resilience. Resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, and toughness. I have a little thing here on resilience here that I found that was kind of interesting, just to get a little recap while we go in. And it says resilience means knowing how to cope in spite of setbacks or barriers or limited resources. Resilience is a measure of how much you want something and how much you are willing and able to overcome obstacles to get it. It has to do with your emotional strength. Can you elaborate more on this emotional strength of resilience?
Surely can. Emotional strength is really very much a self-created state. What you see from your authority figures, mother, father, teacher, preacher, what you see as the norm of behavior really sets the tone for what you are then able to expect of yourself, which surprises many people because on first blush, it seems as though how you respond to a challenge is bigger than you. You have no control over it. And we all tend to want to seek the easier, softer way. The challenge is that easier, softer way does not build character. That easier, softer way winds up really training your mind, body into the opposite of resilience. You become more actually fixated on a plan. You become actually over time more brittle, and things in nature, when stressed, if they don't bend, they tend to break. So if you think about, for example, wood, different kinds of wood are judged in terms of their resilience on many factors. One of them is how strong the wood is. For example, you know what balsa wood is. The stuff that when I was a kid, they used to make these airplanes that flew, toy airplanes, made of this very light wood that broke easily.
Yeah, back in the day. Yeah, and they had those little strips in it, and you would connect them, the little cuts, and you would connect them, right? Yeah.
Now, stronger wood than that would be like oak or pine, much more dense wood.
Yeah, then it become an anchor, right?
However, another way you become resilient is by learning how to bend and go with the flow like bamboo. So even though bamboo is much less hard, much less rigid than oak or pine or any of those, in terms of resilience, it's really much more resilient when put to the test.
Right.
So in terms of thinking about yourself and growing a child, teaching a student, or when I work with a client, most everyone, when they show up to start to do the work, the reason they show up is because they've reached a tipping point. They've been stressed beyond the limits of what they thought they could handle. And they show up, in their mind's eye, they show up broken.
Right.
And what they really want, they say, is someone to either help them or do it for them. Neither of which will ultimately achieve the really desired result, which is to wind up on the other side more empowered, more enlightened, and more resilient than you were before.
Well, that gets me to my next thing that I wanted to talk about is like the resilience reminds me a lot of what in modern times or in the last 30, 40 years is we all have it. It's termed as like this hero's journey defined like in these postmodern times, right? But in retrospect, we're all participants in the changes that come at us, whether we like them or not, and I think we hold on. That's what builds the resilience or not, right? That brittleness or that swaying of the palm tree or whatever to survive these hurricanes, a lot of us stand tight and get to that point of brittleness, and that brittleness shows how vulnerable we are to break if your mindset isn't there for the resilience, right?
The paradox is that learning non-attachment becomes the key to resilience.
Right.
Because if you stubbornly hold on to an idea or a plan or a dream or whatever it is, the more rigidly you hold on to it, seemingly being strong and not quitting, you really wind up like the line in the country song. You have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Right.
And the challenge is learning about yourself, learning about systems, and learning what's resilience going to look like given the challenge, given the situation, and given how long you're going to have to hold out.
Right. Well, that comes to mind is like, what everyone terming as your growth mindset, right? You have your normal mindset, but then you have the growth mindset. I think so. What was the other one? I forgot the other one, but I'm so focused on the growth mindset. I know these are the counter one, a fixed mindset. I think that goes into resilience. It's like you either have, your fixed mindset, you stay brittle, and when you're broken, you think the world is destroyed, or you have the growth mindset where, you know that life is a series of resilience given the time and situation that happens to you. So when are we not in resilience? Really, if you think about that.
When you are stuck in your stuff, when you are, I'll say, stubbornly holding on to a goal or a plan or an objective, in the face of resistance from the system, for want of a better way to call it. And the system can be the relationship, can be the job, can be the body, whatever it is. We all get taught by well-meaning parents this principle that winners never quit and quitters never win, which is true and false. It is true that having a vision, having a mission, and developing systems to go after it, and maintaining the clarity and consistency is a critical lesson to learn. However, it's not the only lesson to learn, because there occur in life unexpected events, such as, for anyone who's watching this, we've been living this year, 2020, which ironically started out to be the year of perfect clarity and perfect clear vision. And the longer 2020 has gone along, the more what we've gotten to see is nothing is as it seems.
Definitely not.
And nothing that came before really prepared most of us for what to do to endure. And what we're really having to do is reinvent and reconceptualize resilience.
Right.
Because when faced with an unexpected catastrophe that you have nothing in your toolbox to deal with because your authority figures didn't prepare you for it,
Mm-hmm.
when you've exhausted everything else in your toolbox, what do you do then? What do you do then? That's when looking for a coach, looking for a mentor, looking for inspiration becomes critical. Ironically, when you look for those things, what you're initially attracted to is what you think is the experience that the coach or teacher brings for having been through situations like the one you're in.
Right, makes sense.
But what you eventually come to know is the resilience that comes with age. The resilience that comes with age comes when you learn a different kind of strength. In that different kind of strength, you come to see that there's benefits and drawbacks to each trait and each skill that you've learned along the way. And so what you really wind up needing to learn to do is how to become self-aware enough, how to become dynamic and flexible enough to reinvent the strength that it takes to get through the new challenge.
Right.
So sometimes it's knowing how to prepare for something that you've never experienced before, which sounds like a contradiction. How do you prepare for something you've never experienced before?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the biggest thing there is to do about it is don't scare yourself, which seems to run counter to human nature because we tend to respond to novel stimuli and novel situations by becoming fearful. Well, when you come from fear, your autonomic nervous system tends to tighten things up. So you get rigid. And as I said earlier, what we learn in nature is that when stressed, rigid structures tend to break. So the irony is you have to learn to go counter to the fear, or, you know, what they say, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Right, right.
So you literally have to talk yourself into or learn the exercises to go with the flow. So that actually the irony becomes that the challenge that you're fighting, whatever that may be, becomes the teacher. And it becomes the teacher by showing you what works and what doesn't.
Right.
Sun Tzu and the laws of war.
The art of
It's
war.
all about that.
Right.
It's all about using the resistance that you've been struggling against, using it in a novel way to be your teacher, to guide you. What is it they call it? In martial arts, it's when you take the enemy's force and you use it against them.
No, I forgot. I don't remember. I
No
know what
worries.
you're talking about.
But you get the point.
I get the point.
And
Well, how does this apply? I mean, right now we're in 2020, right? And this is the beginning. We had a strong economy, and then COVID came along, coronavirus, and we went through all that. We went through lockdowns. We went through the whole thing. I mean, we've been proven through a resilient test that we didn't know we were in. And now we're going also an election year. So like to add on to all this built up mindset resilience.
There's a sorting process taking place.
Right. But let me just finish the question, go into that, probably lead into that. So how do we stay resilient in a world of right now that seems to be so much disinformation or information? How do we handle all that? Like all these things are happening, and to stay resilient amongst this is, like one guy that I listened to, Paul Checko, he says, this is when you learn to be an adult.
Yes.
You start doing trial and error on your own and start seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yes.
How do we handle this? How do we stay resilient in a world with so much disinformation right now?
Keep your eyes on the prize, meaning when I work with clients, it's always starts with coming to recognize your values, your mission, and your vision, and not be distracted from that.
Right.
So that what's coming your way is not in the way, it's on the way. And so the whole purpose of the challenge, whatever that challenge is, winds up becoming your teacher. It winds up, instead of pushing back against it, Aikido. Aikido is the martial art that you use the force of your opponent against them.
Judo.
Yep,
yeah.
That too.
Right, yeah.
Well, guess what? We're in it right now, and I see it in my clients, in the people that I coach, that resilience winds up looking like the complete opposite of what you'd think it would be. Learning how to go with the flow winds up being about adapting and changing to meet the new demands. There's a restaurant we went to a few weeks ago that, in the midst of all of this COVID and the challenges of lockdown and reopen and lockdown and reopen, they reinvented themselves as a restaurant. You were not allowed to have indoor eating. So they built a large, like a lanai, a large covered outside structure, which let them actually increase their capacity to deliver service and do business larger than what they were when they were in a building. The cost of the reconstruction, because it was this outside structure, was a fraction of what it would have been to build a block building of the same size. So they adapted, and now they're actually even more profitable than they were before.
Right.
So is the case with many of my clients. If you're willing, and this is the key, when you know the game is rigged and you cannot fail, when you listen to the still small voice that lets you know that you are part of the flow, and being part of the flow, all we're ever really given is opportunities to learn and grow and evolve. And the less you resist it, the more you go with the flow, the more you come to get to know what resilience is, A, for you, given how you were assembled at the factory.
Right.
And B, what the situation calls for, even when it's a novel situation, not like anything you've ever experienced before. Because what you can tell, what you can really come to trust in your own assessment is what works and what doesn't. And as you learn more of what works and what doesn't in the new reality, you get to reinvent and reconceptualize. And that's resilience.
Where and what are the tools that you can offer or give an advice to strengthen and grow like the faith in our own resilience?
Pray, meditate, exercise. Yoga is particularly useful because when you develop physical flexibility, you're also developing attitudinal flexibility. And so when you experience yourself having greater motion and flexibility and ranges of motion, you also get to realize that you can go with the flow more than anything by relaxing. When you learn a yoga pose and you're developing that discipline, the biggest lesson there is to learn is the harder you push, the more you get pushback.
Right.
And no one can really teach it to you other than as a principle. It's something that requires you to go through the experience of, and it's the ultimate surrender to win. Because when you surrender to win in a yoga pose and you get more flexibility, your mind learns from that. So that the next challenge that you meet, even though your fear instinct may be to hold on tight, when you make the connection, I have this young graphic artist. He's very clever and very creative. And his name is Martin Casado.
Oh, yeah, he is all that you said.
He's quite brilliant.
Right.
And one of the things that he reminded me and reminds me when I need it, and it fits right here, is the reminder that you got this. Because that's really where the rubber meets the road in terms of cultivating resilience is don't listen to the fear monster. Even though it's a novel situation, even though it's a new challenge, we know the universe never gives us anything we can't handle. And the key to remembering is, yes, you got this. So that's the takeaway for today, is the special sauce. The hidden key to resilience is to remind yourself, regardless of the circumstances, you got this.
Right. We do got this.
Yes.
Resilient to mind. I think we'll keep it at that. Let's keep being resilient. If you either hear this recently or we'll probably have a president by then.
Or not.
Or not. It's the whole process. But, stay resilient, stay to our thing. I think you were discussing a lot about rituals as well. Establish discipline, rituals, and a strong mindset, a growth mindset. I think Carl Dweck or something wrote. That's a good book. Do you have any other books? I think
listen.
A book's on mindset.
Go to GoodmanFactor.com.
Right.
Or drlarrygoodman.com. The book that this guy, Martin Casado, and I co-wrote
Well,
It's called Fridays with Goodman.
you can check
There's
this out.
lots of wisdom there too. You can always reach us on Calendly and schedule a call.
For sure.
We're here to serve you. You got this.
We got
And
this.
have an awesome day.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for listening to Fridays with Goodman. All right, buddy. You have a good weekend. Talk to you later.
Bet.
So.